Every so often, we get a story about an incredible finding coming out of some rich fossil bed, or amber deposit, or some frozen bog and tundra. Well, today I want to tell you about a new finding from the endless expanses of Siberia. Several years ago, in a region of Russia's far east studded with the fossils of great Paleolithic beasts, a local man and licensed mammoth tusk hunter, Boris Bereznev, went out looking for mammoth tusks. When Bereznev traveled along the banks of the Samuyuk River in 2017, he found a well-preserved male cave lion cub. In 2018, he found another cub just 15 meters away from where he found the first one. It was the same species, but female, and belonging to a different litter. Radiocarbon dating placed the female cub at approximately 28,000 years old, and the male cub at approximately 43,500 years old. Today's news is about a new study detailing the analysis of these cubs, which was recently published in the journal Quaternary. The whole study is quite succinct, so it's a quick and enjoyable read. I'll quote some passages from the paper that I think are both fascinating and informative, and then I'll explain a little bit about what they mean in less technical terms. So let's start with a passage from the introduction section. The Pleistocene Siberian Arctic zone was replete with large mammals and is astonishingly different from the Arctic zone of the present day. Along with mammoth, Mammuthus primigenius, woolly rhinoceros, Coelodonta antiquitatis, bison, Bison priscus, and saiga, Saiga tatarica, lived the cave lion, Panthera spelaea, a close relative of contemporary Afro-Asiatic lion, Panthera leo. It was on top of the trophic pyramid of the land polar ecosystem, being a part of the large Pleistocene carnivore guild, alongside the wolf, Canis lupus, wolverine, Gulo gulo, and brown bear, Ursus arctos. It is still unknown exactly how cave lions adapted to life in the harsh conditions of the high latitudes with their rapid seasonal periodicity, strong winds, and cold and long winters, with associated continuous nights. Mummified remains have provided valuable information about how mammoths, rhinoceros, horses, and bison have adapted to Pleistocene North Siberian conditions. Thus far, there are only 4 such finds of Panthera spelaea cubs, all in varying states of preservation. All 4 cubs were found between 2015 to 2018 in Yakutia, in the river basin of the Indigirka River. The first 2 were found in 2015 in the Uyandina River and were only able to be examined quite superficially. In this article, we will provide a preliminary description of 2 new mummified cave lion cubs from Yakutia." Unquote. So, after this big introduction of all of the animals that existed in the Pleistocene Siberian Arctic zone, they go on to talk about a few of the cubs that have recently been discovered. And after this, they go on to explain that the mammoth tusk hunter Boris Bereznev discovered the cub, named Boris, in 2017, and the cub Sparta in 2018, writing, quote, "The lion cubs were discovered in the shoreline denudation at a depth of 10 to 12 meters from the top of the Yedoma Late Pleistocene deposits. It's a glacial complex. Bone remains from members of the typical fauna of the Yakutian mammoth steppe were also found in the same location: wolf, brown bear, woolly mammoth, woolly rhinoceros, Lena horse, reindeer, and steppe bison. A mummy of a bird was also discovered in the same location as these other finds. The bird was radiocarbon dated to 42,600 plus or minus 1,100 years before present, which corresponds to a calibrated age between 44,163 to 48,752 calendar years before present. The bird carcass was genetically identified as a female horned lark, Eramophylla alpestris. This is a species that usually inhabits open habitat such as the steppe environment that existed in Siberia at this time." Unquote. Now, when all of these cubs, these frozen but well-preserved cubs, were brought to a research station in Yakutsk, they were found to contain no infectious diseases. Now, that might sound kind of out of left field, but this is actually really important, because Paleolithic diseases are becoming a threat in the Arctic due to climate change. Now, this is kind of an aside, But as the climate warms, permafrost melts, and it will begin to reveal the frozen corpses of animals who died thousands and thousands of years ago. Many of these animals carry diseases, and as their corpses thaw, those diseases can reactivate and spread. There was already a case a few years ago of a young boy in Russia, I think a 12-year-old, being killed by a strain of bubonic plague that was preserved in a caribou carcass. The caribou carcass had been exposed by warming weather, warming permafrost, and when it thawed, the Yersinia pestis bacteria responsible for bubonic plague was reanimated. So the good news is that these cubs didn't have any diseases like that. Now the researchers then went on to study the external anatomy of the cubs, as well as doing genetic and molecular analysis, X-ray, CT exams, and radiocarbon data analysis. So the CT exams allowed them to observe the internal anatomy of the cubs, which was particularly successful in the case of the female cub, Sparta, who was exceptionally well preserved. Some of their observations are particularly informative. For example, quote, "The small head and body size of Sparta and Boris do not correlate with the dentition, which indicates that the postnatal development of cave lion cubs was much faster than that of a contemporary lion cub. This may be due to the short periods of warm weather, harsher winters in the northern latitudes, meaning cubs had to develop faster and be able to eat meat at a younger age." Unquote. When they studied and analyzed their fur, they came to similar conclusions. About the fur, they say, quote, "Sparta's coat is well preserved," unquote. And about the other one, about Boris, they say, quote, "Boris's coat is similar to Sparta's coat. His guard hair is quite long throughout the whole body, and the undercoat is thick. However, his hair has fallen off in some areas, underarms, the right side of the body, and the muzzle." Modern lion cubs' guard hair and fur undercoat are very similar, with the fur undercoat needed for protection and thermoregulation. The coat hair of a cave lion is similar but not identical to that of an African lion cub, with cave lions being distinguished by the presence of hair pellicle ornament. Cave lion fur also has a long, thick fur undercoat consisting of strombuliform aeriferous fur hair. It covers the body of a cave lion cub evenly, and most likely helped cave lion cubs adapt to the cold climate. Unquote. So this research paper is full of quotes like this, comparing these cubs to modern African lions and noting differences that might suggest evolutionary changes. They even include a comparison between the cave lion cubs and Paleolithic cave drawings of lions dated to about 36,000 years ago. Here's what they conclude in the paper. Quote, "It seems unlikely that it is a coincidence that all 4 mummies of the cave lion cubs found to this day are from the Carginian interstadial, and were found in a quite confined area in the river basin in the midstream of the Indigirka River, in parentheses, lower reaches of Uyandina River and Samyulyek-Terektak River, located only 60 kilometers from each other, end parentheses. The larger number of cubs found suggests that this area during the Carginian interstadial, when the climate was becoming relatively warm and tree vegetation was spreading, was a favorable breeding site for cave lions. It also seems probable that this site, during this time period, had some characteristics that made it more likely to rapidly freeze and preserve animals." Unquote. So there you go. That's a really fascinating peek into the world of the recent Paleolithic, given to us by 2 extremely well-preserved cave lion cubs recovered from the endless expanses of Siberia.